I cut off my sister after she slept with my husband and told me to stay out of their business. Years later, they begged me to care for their son while she recovered from a car crash. I'm a 36-year-old woman, and I've been divorced for 3 years. My ex-husband, Caleb, who's also 36, had an affair with my sister, Elisa, 32, while we were married, which ended our relationship. Caleb and I met through friends when we were 25, at a party, and that's when we started dating. We were in a relationship for 3 years, after which he proposed, and then we got married. We had been married for about 5 years when I finally found out that he had been cheating on me with my sister. Caleb and Elisa met for the first time when I brought him home for dinner, 6 or maybe 7 months into our relationship. By then, we knew that we were serious about each other and decided to introduce each other to our families. I had already met his family, it was just his parents since he had no siblings. I, however, have a pretty big family. I am the middle child. Our oldest sibling is Chris, who's 40, and he's pretty much the only person I'm speaking to from my family now. The first time I brought Caleb home for dinner, he got along well with everybody, but most of all with Elisa. They realized that they had a lot of things in common, like their favorite TV shows, books, and even the kind of cuisine they enjoyed, and they really bonded over that. I thought it was cute. I had no idea what it would turn out to be in the future. They became really good friends, and I was happy that Caleb was getting along so well with my family. At that point, I also had a good relationship with Elisa. Since we were closer in age compared to Chris, Elisa and I would sometimes even go out on double dates with our respective partners, and we had a lot of fun times together. She had a couple of short-lived relationships while Caleb and I were together. So, she would bring a different guy on every date. She would even joke about how she wished Caleb had a sibling so she could just date him instead. She would occasionally make comments about how Caleb was the perfect guy and how lucky I was. But I always took them as compliments, never reading too much into it. Because I genuinely thought that she was just praising Caleb. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I never thought that maybe she was hinting at something. Because that's how much I trusted and loved her. It didn't even occur to me that maybe she had a thing for him. When Caleb proposed to me and we got married, there was nobody happier than Elisa. As a matter of fact, she was even the maid of honor at my wedding. So, you can imagine how hurt I was after 5 years of being together. When I discovered that the two of them had been sleeping together behind my back. Before you ask, there was nothing going on that could have made me suspicious about the two of them. I trusted Elisa more than anything in the world, and I also trusted Caleb. In my head, they would never do anything to hurt me, and I was sure of it. So, for 5 years, Caleb and I had a really smooth sailing relationship. There were a couple of minor hiccups here and there, like he wanted kids, and I was not ready for it. He wanted me to spend less time at work, but that was not an option for me. Because I earned more than him, and with the kind of lifestyle we had, we needed my income to support ourselves financially. He thought I was too career-oriented and wanted me to be a little more laid back. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't explain to him that we absolutely needed the money both of us were earning to have a stable lifestyle. For context, I am an investment banker, and it's a really demanding job. He works in marketing, and he's good at his job, but he's not very dedicated to it the way I am. I'm not complaining about it. I really love my job, and it helps me fulfill my dreams, so why shouldn't I work hard for it? As for why I didn't want kids, well, that's an easy answer. I wasn't mentally or emotionally ready to be a mother, and I would rather not do something at all than do a bad job of it, especially when it comes to being a parent. I think if someone isn't ready to be a parent, there's no way they should be pressured or coerced into becoming one. I didn't want to have kids and then regret my decision, and I had been very clear about it right from the beginning of our relationship. But he assumed I would change my mind as we got married and time went on. I don't know why he thought that, since I had always said I didn't want kids. Anyway, these were the major bones of contention between the two of us. In most of our fights, the big ones were usually about either of these two things. Like every other couple, we also had petty fights and disagreements. But we were always able to work through them. Even when we had big fights, we would make up in the end, and I thought we both knew we were in it for the long run. Or at least I thought I knew that. I don't think we were on the same page. My point is, we would fight, but we would always make up. He always expressed his love for me, even up until a week before I discovered that he had been cheating on me. And I never had any reason to doubt his loyalty because he never gave me one. However, a week after we celebrated our 5-year wedding anniversary, I found out that he had been having an affair with Elisa. Even on the day of our anniversary, Caleb was being all cute with me at the party, acting like I was the only person he cared about. But that changed significantly after I found out that he had been cheating on me. A couple of days after we celebrated our anniversary, I was going through my wardrobe looking for something but couldn't find it. So, I decided to check Caleb's wardrobe. I don't remember exactly what I was searching for, but I had a work event coming up, and there was a specific blazer I wanted. I thought maybe I had accidentally put it with his clothes, so I started looking there. While searching, I accidentally grabbed a bag shoved at the back of his wardrobe. Out of curiosity, I pulled it out and began going through it. To my shock, I found women's clothes stuffed inside. After examining a few items, I realized I had seen these clothes before. They were all Elisa's. I was in a state of total confusion, unable to make sense of what was going on. I couldn't come up with a single reasonable explanation for why my sister's clothes were hidden in my husband's wardrobe. In that moment of disbelief, I decided to look through Caleb's phone, something I had never done before. I trusted him completely, and he had never given me any reason to doubt him. But at that moment, I felt I had to do it. If I confronted him directly about the clothes, he would have time to come up with an excuse and hide any evidence. So, I took a deep breath and went for it. I knew his phone's password. And when I checked his DMs, I found what I feared. Initially, his chat with Elisa seemed innocent. But as I scrolled up, I saw the true nature of their relationship. They were flirting, getting intimate over text, and making plans to hook up. It explained all the late nights Caleb had been working. From what I gathered, this affair had probably been going on for months. Coincidentally, Elisa had come over for lunch that day, so I had both of them in the house at the same time. It was the perfect opportunity for confrontation. I showed them the texts and the bag of clothes I found in Caleb's wardrobe and demanded an explanation. But instead of apologizing or even denying it, they both told me this was none of my concern and that I should stay out of their business. I was stunned by their reaction. Obviously, this was my business. My husband was cheating on me with my sister. I think that qualifies as my business. I didn't hold back. I started screaming at both of them, but they continued to act like it was no big deal. Caleb even had the audacity to tell me that, because I wasn't giving him a child, and I didn't spend enough time with him. Which was hypocritical because I was the one supporting our lavish lifestyle. He had to look for other options. And since he and Elisa got along so well, Elisa chimed in, saying I should be glad he chose to keep it in the family instead of going elsewhere because that would have been even more embarrassing for me. They told me they weren't going to stop their affair, and now that I knew, they saw no reason to hide it from me any longer. They had only been keeping it under wraps to avoid the drama. They were just waiting for her promotion so she could move away, and Caleb would follow her. But now that I knew, they were fine with revealing everything. It was a nasty situation, and I don't know how I managed to get through it. There wasn't much left to say after I found out the truth. And since they didn't seem guilty at all, I knew there was no way I could forgive him. I filed for divorce. After I told my parents, they cut Elisa off completely, and Chris also stopped speaking to her. No one from our family had any ties with her after that, and they didn't seem worse off for it either. A few weeks later, Elisa moved away to Pennsylvania, which is a 9-hour drive from here. Once our divorce came through 3 months later, Caleb followed her. He didn't contest the divorce or my petition and left everything to me. I guess he figured that now that he was with Elisa, he wouldn't have to worry about money. She had been promoted to a better position, which meant better pay. So, he didn't need to concern himself with losing out on my wealth or the settlement from the divorce. He was in a hurry to get it over with, and I'm glad because it allowed me to move on quickly. Since then, neither I nor anyone else from our family has had any contact with her. We don't know where she is, what she's been up to, and we've never bothered to find out. My friends who still follow her and stay in touch with her know better than to bring her up around me. So, to sum it up, I have no idea what's going on in her life. It's been 3 years, but I'm still trying to recover from everything they put me through. They really messed me up for good. However, I was reminded of everything a couple of days ago when Caleb got back in touch with me. He called me from a number I didn't recognize. Unfortunately, I've had the same phone number for the past few years, so I didn't think much before answering. As soon as I heard his voice on the other end, I should have hung up, but curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to hear him out. He sounded desperate and upset and quickly explained that he was calling to ask for my help, which was really bold considering we hadn't spoken in 3 years and didn't exactly end on good terms. The least he could have done was apologize, but he didn't. He went straight to the point. Elisa had been in a car accident a few weeks ago and was unable to move because she had fractured both legs, and her arms were severely bruised. They had a 2-year-old son who needed care, and Caleb was struggling to handle everything on his own. He had tried asking his friends for help, but they were all busy and unwilling to take on such a huge responsibility. Caleb explained that he couldn't manage both his work and taking care of Elisa and their son. With Elisa bedridden for the foreseeable future and unable to work, they needed to find a way to manage. They considered hiring a full-time nurse, but that was out of their budget, especially since they lived in an expensive area. They had already called my parents, but my parents said they were too old to help, even though they would have agreed otherwise. His own parents were not an option either. His father had passed away a year ago, and his mother lived in Canada with her sister. They had also contacted Chris, but he refused to have anything to do with them. Without any close ties to their extended family, they felt they had no other choice but to turn to me. They were literally begging me to help, despite the years of no contact. After years of holding everything in, I finally had my moment. When Caleb finished explaining, I simply told him that I couldn't help because, just as they had once told me, it wasn't my business. Then I hung up and blocked his number. I didn't bother getting into details or explaining myself. I just left it at that. Chris thinks I did the right thing, but my parents don't agree. They believe that 3 years have passed and that I should be over it by now, especially given what Elisa is going through. They think I should be there for her. I don't understand their reasoning. They think I'm being stubborn by refusing to help, while I think they're being ridiculous for even expecting me to consider it after what Elisa and Caleb did to me. I do feel bad for the child, I really do, but again, that's not my problem. My parents insist that I'm being selfish and stubborn and that I should at least consider helping before outright refusing. It's been a couple of days now, and they're really getting to me. I'm starting to question whether I did the right thing or not. Thank you very much for watching to the story so far. I suggest you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss tomorrow's stories.